You know, I'm not going to comment on the third hair right now because it's not in front of me, and I don't want to be wrong about that.
And you said it was your understanding. I take it someone on the defense side is telling you this?
It is my understanding, and that did not come from the defense. But I don't want to comment on something I don't have in front of me. That is my understanding of it, and I would rather be clear about that before
Let me just ask you something on a broader sense.
Yes.
Okay. Yesterday, as they have done previously, the court has released documents, and they went to whatever page it was, 87 or 89 or whatever, 8900 or whatever. You are, and for the first time, anybody beyond the court system is releasing pages that have been shared back and forth in discovery, but not shared with reporters. What's your hope, or why take this, step forward to do something that has sort of broken from the past routine?
This was provided to the Anthonys because of the criticism and the difficulties they've been through in supporting their daughter. And it finally, I think, shows that they have good reason to support her. Not just because it's their daughter, but because there are questions that need to be answered.
Do you have any reason to feel that the prosecution, which very often drives the vote in these situations, is piecing out information in a way that is played in the court of public opinion?
That's not a statement that I would make. I've spoken to the state. The discovery is released by the public information officer and not the 3 state attorneys on it. And I certainly wouldn't make that statement about the 3 state attorneys that I've known for a long time.
Since the Anthonys have asked you to hold this press conference involving the discovery that was released yesterday, and one of the things we saw was some correspondence with Private Investigator Dominic Casey about his search for Zenaida Gonzalez. Tell us, where does the search stand for Kaylee's abductor?
It's up in the air. There no Zenaida Gonzalez has been found here. That search continues. Puerto Rico is, I would say, the focus of the search for the Zenaida Gonzalez that Casey Anthony speaks of. And that's about as far as I could go.
What was Cindy and George's reaction when they finally got a chance to see this?
It reinforces what they've been saying all along. They want a complete investigation. They want the answers. They want to know what the truth is. And regardless of what that is, they want to know.
Some of the information that has been passed between Dominic Casey and Cindy Anthony, especially when it comes to Roy Kronk, and some of what appears to be some pretty deep digging into his past. Is it fair to say that Cindy and Dominic were trying to dig up dirt on Roy Kronk?
I don't think I'd say dig up dirt. Everybody's got skeletons.
Isn't that dirt?
It's an investigation. It's an investigation, and every witness is going to be thoroughly investigated, and sometimes it doesn't make a bit of difference.
But do they feel like it's up to them to do that investigating as opposed to the proper authorities?
They feel like they need to continue the investigation, and we don't know whether the investigation continues with the state attorney's office or the Orange County Sheriff's Office. I assume that it would because they're professionals, and I assume that they would take any additional information and follow up on it. But I don't know how active that is.
But you wouldn't say that Cindy and Dominic are in any way interfering in the investigation by doing some of what they're doing?
Absolutely not. I mean, they are the Anthony family, the defense. They continue to investigate leads, whether they go somewhere or not. They're going to always continue.
Does it look like it's a desperate attempt by actually accusing Richard Grund of some sort of sacrificial ritual and, a connection between Roy Kronk and Richard Grund would be huge, was Cindy's word in an email, I think, to you, and maybe she was passed, or maybe to Dominic. Those things seem a little out there and a little desperate. How would you characterize that, and are they ashamed that those emails have been made public?
They're part of disclosure. They complied with the subpoena. And, that normally would have been a private conversation. As far as reaching...
Are they ashamed that was released?
No.
Do they continue
it's
that?
part of discussions that they've had, and it's part of an investigation that is ongoing. And I'm not going to comment further.
Brad, the Anthony's haven't wanted to talk about Kaylee's death. I mean, George in reference to this choked up, you mentioned the word remains. So why talk about it now? I mean, this gets, I know it's more scientific than personal, but why talk about it now?
It's time to start. I mean, the questions are coming out, and the discovery backs up the fact that they have had these questions all along. If you go back 6 months and consider their questions or their concerns about it, and the discovery at that time was so skewed that they were ridiculed, they were laughed at, they were chastised for having these beliefs that the investigation was not complete, that the full story wasn't being told. Now it's starting to come out, and so now they're dealing with it.
So the question is, if this would likely be released at some point in time next week, what's the point in jumping the gun and getting this out before the state attorney's office released it?
Because to take it in context is the right thing to do, and to leave pieces undone opens up speculation that's not accurate. They had access to it, and they wanted it out there. They wanted people to know
what
that.
What is the context? Because I'm not clear about what the point
The context is that there are links that have been made in the past that can't be made now, and namely the duct tape around Kaylee's skull versus what is on the gas can.
Do we know whether the Anthonys had more than one roll of duct tape in their garage?
I believe the only duct tape that was taken was in the garage, and that was used for comparison.
I'm curious in a sort of a macro sense then, are you suggesting that George and Cindy are now saying there was all of this expectation of scientific evidence that was going to present the slam dunk, but as each piece of paper arrives, it whittles away that kind of slam dunk? Or what? I mean, sort of give me sort of the texture of what they're saying and why they feel each. I mean, this is very difficult. Q45, Q64. That stuff gets very complicated. But in the broader sense, when you whittle it down, what is it that they feel all of this contributes to with the prosecutor's scientific presentation?
Okay, it's a complicated and complex circumstantial evidence case, and a circumstantial evidence case is like a chain. It's only as strong as the weakest link. It came out strong. It came out strong in the beginning because people were willing to believe whatever was talked about. Now we're getting to the point where the links are being questioned, and those links are what's called reasonable doubt. State Attorney's Office has a job to do. They've got to prove their case beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. They're confident in their case, but they have to acknowledge that there are questions that need to be answered, and there are problems that need to be overcome. One of them is the DNA from the FBI analyst. You know, that's a mistake that was made. Is it meaningful? Don't know that till we get in trial.
Brad, has the tide turned in terms of the landscape of the evidence? As you talked about at the beginning, you had the circumstantial, but now as more and more of the forensics come out, and they would appear, at least on the surface, to be disappointing to the prosecution, in the Anthony's opinion, has the tide turned then that there is not this forensic link that perhaps was hoped for, whereas there is still some pretty strong circumstantial evidence?
The tide that they're hoping will turn is the public opinion that she's presumed to be innocent, and give her that opportunity. You know, the defense doesn't have to do anything under our rules and our Constitution. But if they want that chance, they certainly should have it. If they don't want to take that chance at trial and put on a case, the state's got the burden. And so they are hoping that the tide has turned now in terms of people looking at it and saying, well, maybe we need to wait, and maybe we need to make that decision when we hear from the people that did these reports.
So George and Cindy have maintained their support of their daughter. Is this like, are they at the point now saying, finally, now we're at the point where all of that prosecution and police evidence is now in question?
They are finally at the point where information that they've had and that we've had, they are now able to talk about it. And now they're able to say, you know, we asked that people refrain from drawing conclusions now, and this is why.
When did they get these? How long have the Anthonys had?
Yesterday.
Okay, and who explained sort of what this meant, the queue and...
That was, I went through it and went through it with them. So in terms of just making it easier for you guys, that's why I wanted to kind of delineate which queue items were which, so you didn't have to go through the report.
So when I look at 90